Hey there, Bruce, and welcome back to Remember 11, Age of Infinity. We just finished having a chat with Yuni, trying to get some information out of him. I'm not sure if we were successful or not, but we definitely broke him for a little bit. Anyway, I've already decided where I'm going next, apparently. I opened the door to the room. Entering, I saw Inubushi Kaiko sitting on top of the desk. She looked toward me, both her feet dangling in the air. "Who are you?" she said. "Who are you?" Even after dispensing with greetings, for her to question me like that was awfully sudden. "Hey, don't you know me?" Yanking idly on her long hair, she answered, I remember. We met yesterday, come to think of it. You promised that you'd protect me, but in the end, you didn't do a thing. Well, all she hit me with was a tranquilizing drug, so I guess it doesn't really matter." The contents of the conversation aside, I was taken aback by her attitude and manner of speech. She seems like a completely different person compared to the girl from last night. The girl who'd clung to me, pleading for me to save her. There wasn't so much as a trace of her anymore. "And you are?" she asked. My mouth was frozen shut. I couldn't answer. "Hey, you're listening, right? You entered someone else's room without knocking. Moreover, this is pretty much our first meeting. You won't even introduce yourself? What's up with that? Isn't it pretty rude?" "Were you going to murder me?" Bewildering thoughts began to whirl around in my head. This is pretty much our first meeting, is what she'd said. Does that mean she hasn't met Fuyukawa Kokoro either? This is our first meeting, even including the times when my body was being controlled by Kokoro? Is that how it is? Sorry. "Hey, Fever, you know." "As if. Just kidding," she said suddenly in a bright, playful voice. And as it leapt from her mouth, she too jumped up from her desk. Gliding smoothly across the floor, she drew toward me. After crouching down once, she suddenly took a great hop forward. On rising, her face was now so close to mine that my breath fanned against her cheeks. Her eyes held an impish spark. Her lips were curved in a soft grin, as if she were trying to cover up some kind of prank. I didn't know what that was. As if trying to act more reserved. "Your name is Fuyukawa Kokoro." Actually, I knew that all along. I heard it from that uni kid. The more she said, the greater my confusion grew. Mystery upon mystery upon mystery. It felt like I'd be drowned in a whirlpool of them. In the meantime, it felt like I ought to do something to dam the flood of information. I had to resolve each issue one at a time. I addressed her in a strained voice. "I'm not Kokoro. I'm Yukido Satoru." I uttered those words so many times I was getting sick of them. They could practically be my catchphrase by now. Answering like that had already been a conditioned reflex. Is that so? Yukido Satoru. That other personality that Yuni mentioned, right? Hold on a second. Can you not treat me like I'm some sort of stand-in? After all, I'm the original owner of this body. In other words, you're the main personality, Satoru. Well, I don't mind if you think of it like that, I muttered somewhat bitterly. Given the current situation, I didn't feel like explaining the transference phenomenon to her, of all people. Okay, got it. Then the you right now is Yukido Satoru. But were you the one who chased me all the way to the basement yesterday? Yeah, that was me. She stole a glance at me and then averted her eyes, just as quickly, a scornful smile forming on her face as she did. "Ah, now that I think of it, I never told you my name, did I?" "No, I already know. Your name is Inubushi Kaiko." We're actually talking Inubushi Kaiko this time. For the first time ever, I think. Inubushi Kaiko? Who the heck is that? Your old girlfriend or something? My name is Suzukage Hotori. Could you not get it wrong like that? Does that mean the reserved one that calls herself Suzukage Hotori is actually Inubushi Kaiko, hiding out? Hearing that from her, I suddenly remember something. Utsumi and Yuni kept calling her by the name Hotori. In other words, that meant that right now the dominant personality of the girl in front of me was Suzukage Hotori. However, I found something unnatural about that. Why didn't she know about Inubushi Kaiko? Shouldn't she know the name written in her own family register? Still harboring my doubts, I said this in the meantime. "I see, so you're Hotori." "Yep." She nodded immediately. If I tried to assert the idea that you should be Inubushi Kaiko as a fact here and now, nothing would come of it. Though I still had my apprehensions about her condition, I decided to call her Hotori. "And what did you come here for, Satoru?" "Nothing, I just wanted to talk for a while." Now that I'd established that she really did suffer from DID, I knew that I wanted to ask her. But a new mystery had been born the moment I entered this room. I tried to put forward some of my doubts. "Hey, Hotori, why'd you lie just now?" "Lie? You acted like you didn't know my name, right?" Oh, that. I just wanted to tease you a little. Satoru, you may be talking all sensible right now, but you're actually not quite right in the head, are you? You got DVD, was it? DID, actually. Dissociative Identity Disorder. That's it. You have that dissociadoodle thingy, right? Yeah, I guess that's right. I answered her with that, since explaining it in detail would have been too much of a hassle. That's why I was wondering how you'd react if I pretended not to know you. Just basic curiosity, I guess. Oh, that face, are you angry? No? Not really. You're lying, you're definitely angry. Look at your face. No, don't be angry. I most deeply and sincerely apologise. I really do. She clapped her hands and dipped her head in a courtly bow. Unsurprisingly, I was having a hard time figuring out how to deal with her. I crossed my arms and looked out the window, but she still remained there with her head bowed. I get it. Enough. Raise your head already. What? Then you're gonna forgive me? Yeah. Really? You're not mad? Nope. Once I told her that, she spun around in delight, wearing a wide smile across her face. Yay, thank goodness. If she hated the thought of anyone disliking her so much, then she shouldn't have mocked me like that in the first place. I couldn't understand her demeanour. She's never been like this before. Afterward, I presented her with 2 questions. It wasn't clear how much of what she said was the truth, though. The questions and answers were as followed. Question 1. Is it true that you heard my name from Uni? It's true indeed. Hotori, Inubushi Kaiko, and I supposedly been in this facility for a while now. However, until she heard it from Uni, Hotori didn't even know my name. Did that mean that the Hotori personality hadn't surfaced until yesterday? At any rate, this meant that when she said, "This is pretty much our first meeting," it was the truth. Question 2. Then, have you ever met Fuyukawa Kokoro personality? No. No, she said. Her previous impression that I had DID was solely based on what Uni and Utsumi had told her. In actuality, she'd never spoken to Fuyukawa Kokoro's consciousness herself. What does this mean? Did Kokoro purposely try to avoid Hotori? No. The above 2 points were the source of my confusion. Of course, I couldn't take everything Hotori said to be the absolute truth. Anyway, let me repeat myself. Don't trust anything anyone says here. I remembered the words Utsumi said yesterday. But then what was she saying that I should believe? A skeptic must also doubt skepticism itself. I can't say that it's very constructive, though. Though I'd still have to leave myself a little room for doubt, I decided to accept everything Hotori said. Is that everything? Yeah, for now. Okay. Then would you do something for me now? What? Come here a sec. Without warning, Hotori had taken my arm. With a firm hold on me, she pulled me further into the room. Completely helpless, I stumbled as she led me. The bed. Stopping in front of it, she turned to face me. What? What are you doing? Hush. As I stood there confused, she proceeded to wrap her arms around my neck. She drew our bodies right up against each other. The situation is... What are you so afraid of? Hotori wore a charming smile. Her hand began to softly stroke my hair. What do you want? Don't you know? I swallowed my saliva with a gulp. No, I tried to swallow, but inside of my mouth was bone dry. It's nothing big. It's easy. It'll be over real quick. But if you feel like going on for longer, you can do it for as long as you want. Until tomorrow. Morning. Okay? Her pupils shimmered licentiously? Never heard that word. As did her voice, her hands, her lips. What are you trying to say? I squeaked out, my voice cracking. She exhaled through her nose in a little puff, gently as if to blow out a burning candle's flame. Even that breath had a coquettish air. I'm not trying to say anything. You don't have to say anything either, you can do it without a word, and I want you to. She whispered in my ear. A sweet scent rose from her body. It was a mellow fragrance, potent enough to make me dizzy. She was destroying my reason with a simple aroma. It didn't feel like I could contain my impulses rising up from my nether regions any longer. Okay, you'll do it, won't you? Do what? Like, is that what she obviously that's not what she means, right? Refuse? Quit screwing around. I thrust her away and stood up straight. I don't know what's running through your head, but you better stop playing with me. If you believe that all men are so easy to manipulate, you got another thing coming. At the very least, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not the kind of guy who'd fool around with just anyone. On the bed, lying face up after I snapped at her. She suddenly laughed out loud. My stomach hurts, it hurts. She writhed with laughter on the bed. I was absolutely dumbstruck. I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die laughing. If you believe that all men are easy to manipulate, you've got another thing coming. Stupid, stupid, too stupid, too stupid. Just what were you thinking about, honestly? What the fuck is going on? LeMay's style? I left her rolling around in the bed and returned to my room. She said, I'm not right in the head. Jesus Christ. Hotori's behaviour today. Perhaps she purposely treated me with scorn, but for some reason I wasn't angry at all. Rather, I felt really sorry for her. It's clear that she's mentally ill. Yeah, she's a serial killer, remember? At first glance, it appeared to be just an ordinary selfish girl, but it wasn't as simple as that. As I watched her make fun of others, only to fall down laughing at the hilarity of it, I could see through her facade into the deep-rooted sickness it hid. Suzukage Hotori. Would I be able to save her? I couldn't stop thinking that. Time passed. Soon it was 4 p.m. I returned to my room to throw myself down on the bed, deep in thought. First off was Hotori. It was a problem that couldn't be resolved no matter how much I thought about it. Flipping the switch, I turned my focus to the transference phenomenon. There was a clue that could be the key to unfolding it, and that was Yuni's existence. I thought about Yuni. Yuni had gotten caught up in the transference phenomenon too, the same as Kokoro and I. However, he differed from us in one aspect. Yuni's consciousness had only transferred once. If you compare the speech and behaviour of the two Yunis at the shelter cabin and SPHIA, that much was evident. In terms of personality, the Yuni at SPHIA was consistently the Yuni here, and the Yuni at the shelter cabins, Yuni was always the Yuni there. In terms of location, the behaviour and the two had always been highly consistent. In other words, it's like this. The Yuni at SPHIA at this very moment, the one who had originally dwelled in that body, has the consciousness of the Yuni of the shelter cabin. As for the Yuni in the shelter cabin, the one who's supposed to be dwelling inside that body, he has the consciousness of the Yuni at SPHIA. The consciousnesses have been switched in the transfer. To put it more simply, he'd only experienced a time jump as well as the spatial one. The Yuni at SPHIA was only a year older than the Yuni at the shelter cabin. Naturally, their height probably differed, as well as the makeup of a large portion of their cells, but in terms of genes, they were the same individual. That's why regarding Yuni, it would probably be okay to omit the personality exchange phenomenon concept. It may actually be a personality exchange, but because the two possess the same DNA, it wouldn't be too difficult to consider it a time jump only. Well then, that's the question. The problem became, why did Yuni's body exist here at SPHIA in the first place, after all? Of course, nothing will come of it even if I were to ask the Yuni here. He's the Yuni of 2011. Because he's nothing but a victim who had the misfortune of getting caught up in the transference phenomenon, consequently, the one who should be the target of his question is the Yuni over here. The Yuni of 2012, the one who was at the Mount Akakura of 2011. Now that I thought about it, it certainly did feel like his behaviour was kind of suspicious. If he was the Yuni of 2012, then why did he so calmly accept the time jump? Moreover, he'd been behaving as if he were the Yuni of 2011. He was most likely deceiving us. That guy definitely knows something. That's what I thought. I should try asking him directly the next time I transfer. Okay. Are we going to transfer now? Last time it only took 30 minutes. This time it's going to take all day. While I was pondering this to myself, it had gotten completely dark outside. Next I needed to... That's right, I have to reply to Kokoro. I sat in front of my desk and picked up the pen. Come on, Kokoro. Transfer at 1:07 p.m, that's it? That's all there is? Is that all you wanted to say? Certainly as a reply, what you wrote was wonderfully concise. You replied perfectly with what I asked, after all. I somehow understood what the illustration you attached meant too, but you know, isn't writing only one sentence a little bit cold? Can't you, I don't know, write something a little bit more in depth? We can't meet in person, but at least we're lucky enough to be able to exchange information, right? Wouldn't anyone try to make use of this? You agree, right? We're kind of like partners, you know? Suddenly, at that moment, I heard a knock on the door. Yes? Can you wait a moment? Calling out to whoever was on the other side of the door, I hurriedly continued writing my message. Sorry, seems like a guest has arrived. I'll continue writing later. Right, before I forget to write it, did you already listen to the voice recorder in the shelter cabin? I'm mentioning it again here, just in case. Looks like someone's after me. Be careful. While I'm in the shelter cabin, I consider your body my top priority too. Well then, I'm counting on you, Kokoro. I put down my pen and headed to the door. I turned the knob and pulled the door open. On the other side of the open door was Utsumi standing before me. She had both hands folded before her chest as she looked at me with a face full of anxiety. Wait, isn't this the moment where we got, like, attacked? Does that mean Utsumi's the one who attacked us? All of a sudden, my field of vision shifted. I transferred to the shelter cabin. My form had, of course, become that of Kokoro. She was sitting on a wooden chair. I'd grown accustomed to even this random phenomenon, so I wasn't at all that bothered. Oh? Something's off. Some kind of strangely uncomfortable feeling. An uncomfortable feeling, or should I say an unpleasant one. The old man? Why is the old man's face so close to me? Moreover, what are you doing? That uncomfortable feeling was coming from my right pinky. I felt somewhat tepid. Something soft and slippery was crawling around my finger. On top of that, it felt as though a sea anemone was sticking to it. The old man's face was on the same level as my hand. My finger was in the old man's mouth. The strange feeling coming from my finger was in sync with the movements of his mouth. Lick, lick. I desperately tried to assess the situation. In short, with this information gone, what's happening to me now is... Yomogi's sucking on my little finger. Lick, lick. Mate, it's bleeding by the look of it. My cute little pinky is being sucked by a bearded old man. Lick, lick. His face is stretched out in an unpleasant leer. Lick, lick. I clench my other hand into a fist. Stop it, that's disgusting. Using all my strength, I knocked Yomogi off his feet. He went flying away from me. He somersaulted, then rolled across the floor. It looked really painful, but I felt it was a fitting punishment. I re-examined my right pinky. I was injured. There was a small cut there. It stung and it was bleeding. On the wrist of the same hand was the wristwatch. It was 6:05 PM now. Sheesh, what a pain in the ass. Complaining to myself, I removed the wristwatch and abandoned it on the table. Whoa, that was a good one. Yomogi wiped his mouth as he stood. Are you an idiot? I was truly shocked. You became Yukido-kun. Yeah. More importantly, what the hell happened to my little finger? I asked as I showed him the cut. The knife, it's from the knife. You cut yourself on it. Me? That's right. That is to say Kokoro did. Yeah. She just picked up the knife and started messing around with it. It's dangerous, so I told her to be careful, but really, what did she think would happen? That girl. It's not like she's a little kid. Jeez, this hurts, seriously. I unconsciously licked my bleeding little finger. But he was just licking that. That's an indirect kiss. Tastes like old man. How do you know what old man tastes like? Damn it. God damn it. I felt as if I'd lost something precious. My old man virginity. Something really precious to a girl, although I'm actually a man right now. My purity, innocence, virtue, this nicotine-stained old geezer has soiled them. I've been soiled, It's such a horrifying tragedy that tears began to stream from my eyes. I see. By the way, old man, did you give Kokoro that piece of cardboard for me? Wrapping myself in the blankets, I asked that as I watched the fire in the stove. Huh? Ah, sorry, I forgot. What the hell, seriously? Sorry. I'll definitely do it next time Fuyukawa-san comes back. Sheesh, I'm counting on you. I reminded him one more time. Then I took the VR out of my pocket. Kokoro might have listened to the message. And if she had, it's almost certain that she'd record an answer. When I looked at the playlist, only Data 1 and Data 2 were listed. I played Data 1. I am a seagull. These are the words uttered by the first woman in space, Valentina Tereshkova. All alone aboard the former Soviet Union spaceship Vostok 6, floating in the void of space, a place of complete silence and emptiness. This seemed to be the recording from January 11th. It's not a reply from me, so I went ahead and played Data 2. Kokoro, this is a continuation of my message from before. Since I don't know when we'll transfer again, I'll just get down to business. Calm down and listen, okay? Actually, it seems that my body, it seems someone's after my life. The message that I recorded during my last transfer, there was no reply from me yet. Which would mean that she still hasn't listened to my message, huh? I recall what happened just before the transfer. Back then, I wonder what brought Utsumi to my room. She was kind of fidgety and her eyes were full of unease, almost as though she were afraid of something. I had a really bad feeling. I was beset by vague uneasiness with no clear cause. Kokoro probably still hasn't heard my warning. If for some unseen trouble was going on at SPHIA right now, the flame in the stove before me flickered. The firewood within popped, a quick, vivid sound. Oh, we're going back already. Are we fucked now? After this, we got injured arm or whatever, right? Without warning, I was plunged into complete darkness. A moment later, a sharp pain travelled up my left arm. The pain was agonizing, as if I was being burned. Unable to stand it, I cried out, "What is it? What the hell happened?" I gave in and began to panic. Wait, calm down, calm down. Calm down and think. Look at the situation with a cool head. Enduring the throbbing pain in my arm, I reeled my brain around and forced it to think. The smell. The room smelled odd. Odd was also the word to describe the way the room's temperature felt against my skin. And that wasn't all. My physical senses, even the feeling of clothes against my skin, had undergone a complete change. In the first place, why is it that I'm standing up right now when I was sitting down just a moment ago? In other words, I transferred to SPHIA. Why is it so dark? And what's the pain in my arm? The pain was unbearable. I could tell it was no minor wound. Judging from it, I'd probably been cut. And pretty roughly at that. A large amount of blood seemed to be flowing steadily from the wound. Just what the hell happened? Squinting, I took in my surroundings. As though through a haze, I could gradually see the area around me. I'm in the living area, huh? Sensing another's presence, I turned around. There was someone there. I could see a human silhouette in the darkness. It was standing not too far from me. However, I couldn't make out who it was. Who's there? The unknown person's right hand was holding something. Something that was reflecting a cold light. It was a knife. The hand of the silhouette held a knife. So this bastard's the one who cut my left hand. A memory from yesterday arose like a flashback. My fall from the clock tower. My attempted drowning in the bathtub. It was still hard to believe, but it appeared that someone really was after my life, and now my attacker had finally appeared before me. Knife in hand, the shadow slowly began to approach me. Slowly. Slowly. As if the shadow was sliding across the floor, the distance between us quickly lessened. A chill ran up my spine. Why is it so dark? Where was the electricity? Where were the lights? The knife drew ever closer. The exposed blade glittered in the dark. I'll be killed. Instinctively, I want to stand my ground because I want to see who it is, but I know if I stand my ground, I'll die. Run away. I broke into a run. Where should I go? Where would be safe? And I needed to find a place to hide. It was at that moment I had a thought. Outside? My foot bumped into something. Pain ran along my shin as I took a spectacular tumble. I tripped over the table. Damn, I have to get up. I pushed myself up from the floor with both hands. A sharp pain pierced my left hand. I fell down again, writhing in pain. It's no good. No good at this rate. An alarm went off inside my head. My entire body was covered in a cold sweat. At this rate, I'll be killed. Oh, come on. That always happens. Do you think it's triggered by adrenaline? Feels like it must be, because every time something starts happening, boom. Swap. The concealing darkness before my eyes disappeared in an instant. A faint red light so softly illuminated the surrounding area. I was in the shelter cabin. Another transfer had occurred. I'm saved. However, that thought didn't last long. I felt a strange sensation near my feet, as though being touched by something syrupy. It engulfed me up to my ankles, climbed to my knees, and crept up my thighs, now reaching my waist. It wormed into my spinal cord, ate into my intestines, pierced my lungs, began to overflow from my trachea. The stench of rot made me nauseous. The smell of death, the breath of the Grim Reaper. The sharp edge of a sickle dug into my throat. I shook my head wildly to drive away the delusion. However, the anxiety wouldn't disappear. It began to engulf my entire body. Right now I'm alive. However, the next time my transfer occurs, I could wind up dead. I didn't know what happened to the body that I left behind in SPHIA. It might have already been chopped into pieces by the hands of that unknown maniac. The term half-dead has taken on a whole new meaning for me. It's almost like the cat locked in the box. My eyes dropped to Kokoro's wristwatch. The present time was 7:34 PM. Kokoro, I'm begging you. Please get away somehow. Please be safe and survive. While I was at the shelter cabin, the only thing I could do was pray. Lifting my head, I saw Yomogi and Lin in the room. Yomogi had plugged himself down on a log chair and was reading the taped-together newspaper. It was a newspaper we'd reconstructed yesterday. Lin sat beside the bed with her legs crossed, staring intently at Yomogi. One of her cheeks was clenched and twitched from time to time. Had they had some kind of disagreement? Lin had the face of someone trying to hold back the rising tide of resentment. And where was Yuni anyway? I couldn't see him anywhere. And the moment I thought that, I heard a clattering sound coming from below the floorboards. From the square hole in the corner of the room, I looked in and saw him there. Yuni was fishing around in a wooden box, searching for something. I thought about calling out to him, but then decided that wouldn't be a good time and stopped myself. It was enough for the time being that I knew where he was. As for the other two, neither of them had said a word. Biting my lip, I walked around the room aimlessly, as if trying to throw off the shadow of death. The shadow wrapped itself around my ankles and slithered along after me. My heart raced in my chest. My warm blood became a muddied stream and coursed through my body. I placed my right hand against my chest and somehow tried to calm myself. By reflex, I quickly looked back down at my open palm. My left hand. I hadn't noticed until now, but Kokoro's left hand had been gripping the voice recorder. Did she leave a reply? Clinging to that hope, I hit the voice recorder's power button. Data 3. There was a new voice file. I greedily pressed my ear to the speaker and listened to it. Shh, shh. Oh well, that's it, huh? Did she drop it in the snow? It was disappointing, but there was nothing in the recording but meaningless noise. There wasn't any new data besides that. I unintentionally clucked my tongue. The voice recorder had gotten soaked with my sweat. I wiped it down with my sleeve and placed it back in my pocket. When will the next transfer occur? What happened to my body? After this, I have to jump back into that blind darkness from before. And on top of that, my own consciousness will have jumped back without knowing what's going on. Knowing that that big shove might come at any moment, I couldn't relax for a second. And besides that, while I fear for myself, at the same time I'm worried about Kokoro as well. What if Kokoro would have wound up dead because of me? If it came down to that, what would I do? She didn't have any connection whatsoever to the events at SPHIA, but in spite of that, even now there may be a sharp blade poised right above her throat. The image of Kokoro writhing in agony appeared in my mind. I want to save her. I want to change places with her this very instant. However, at the same time I felt a crushing sensation of fear, a maddening feeling of frustration gouging at my chest. The time slowly passed as my inner dispute continued, inside the cabin shut in by a snowstorm. Even though my body was freezing, uncomfortable sweat ran down me without end. And then, just at that moment, "Cut it out already." Lin's shrill voice reached my eardrums. I jumped in surprise and began preparing myself for the next attack. I timidly turned around. Lin had stood up, her gaze was directed not at me, but at Yomogi. Yomogi, who was taken aback, was returning her gaze. She turned his way and began to approach, her high heels clicking against the floor. "What's wrong?" Without a word, Lin snatched the newspaper away from him. "Hey now, are you going to take away my only source of entertainment too?" "Entertainment? At the very least I can use it to pass the time. I was reading it. Or would you rather be my conversation partner instead?" "Don't you think anything of it? How can you stay cool after reading such a thing?" "Who's staying cool?" "I'm just as scared as you are. However, in order to conquer my fears, I first have to discover the true nature of that newspaper. In order to climb a mountain, you must know its true form in advance. This is the same thing. How can this newspaper have a true form? It's an obvious fake." "A fake? You were singing a different tune last night, as I recall. There's no way it can be a prank, wasn't it?" "Oh, shut up. It's an eyesore anyway. Don't go waving it around in front of me." And with that declaration, Lin hurled the newspaper toward the wall. It flew in my direction. I quickly dodged it. The newspaper bounced off the wall and fell to the floor. "Her Highness is quite violent today." Yomogi shook his head, fed up, and removed a cigarette from his pocket. He placed one in his mouth and lit it. He inhaled the smoke and then blew it back out again. What an insensitive man. It's better than being oversensitive like you, isn't it? That aside, do you actually want to be my conversation partner? You must be joking. Why don't you go talk to a snowman? Tossing those scornful words his way, Lin returned to her bedside. Yomogi puckered his lips and blew a smoke ring. And then, "Hey Seiji, can you lend me a hand?" Yuni's voice called out from below. "It looks like I found someone to pass the time with after all." Yomogi stood up with a spring in his step, then descended into the underground storeroom with the cigarette between his lips. I suddenly remembered as I watched their exchange, right before I transferred in the shelter cabin last night. When we were putting the newspaper back together, Yomogi, Lin and Yuni were all freezing. So then what happened here overnight? If anything, the three of them seemed even more relaxed than after my transfer this afternoon. They were calm and quiet as if nothing was wrong. Did this mean the three of them had settled the matter of the newspaper while I was away? However, if the cinders of the problem are now blown on again and again, like they were just now, then eventually they'll catch fire again. Come to think of it, I had two questions since I've arrived here. The first is, how can a newspaper from July 2011 exist here? It should still be January 12th, 2011 in the shelter cabin. So why is there a newspaper here from half a year later? Could it be that, like my consciousness, the newspaper had jumped through time and space and shown itself here? Half a year earlier? However, in my case, it was only my consciousness that jumped. In other words, something without a physical form. In contrast, a newspaper had... how can I explain it? It had mass. The newspaper was an entity composed of solid material. If it weren't a newspaper, but a CD-ROM or something, If only the information in the article were transferred, then you could say it was the same as my situation, in a way. But that's not how things were. The page was made of actual paper, and on top of that, it was printed with a substance called ink. Therefore, I couldn't imagine the paper could have been transported here via the same transference phenomenon. And why is there a newspaper from the future here? I felt like I wouldn't reach a conclusion no matter how long I thought over it. Alright, we're going to wrap this one up here because we're out of time for today, and I think we've got a lot of musing to do before the scene ends, so we'll be back to the musing later. Thanks for watching, Boris, and I'll see you in the next one.